They say beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, but what happens when the beholder doesn't care for beauty? When they only care about control? Well, you end up with the situation plaguing Afghanistan. The Taliban have imposed yet another diktat, another way to restrict women. They've banned hair and beauty salons. This, among other things, was one of the very few remaining means of employment for Afghan women. And a month from now, this too will stop. Here's a report.
The Taliban are up to their old tricks again, finding new ways to make the lives of Afghan women more miserable. The latest in their gender side is the banning of beauty salons. It started last week. The Taliban sent out a text message telling hair and beauty salons that they were on the clock. These businesses have to wind up by the end of the month. Anyone found operating their salons beyond the deadline will suffer dire consequences. Now the question is, why? Well, the Taliban say they'll tell us eventually, once the salons have all shut. So until then, we can't do much but speculate. We should spend this time asking the big picture questions. First, what does this mean for Afghan women? Well, that's another employment avenue out of the window. And it's the end of women-only workspaces for them. Salons reportedly served as a sort of safe haven for Afghan women. It was a place where they could gather without men present. A place free from male chaperones and guardians. That's gone now. The next question we should ask is why this sudden return to form by the Taliban? You see, the Taliban have done this before. During their last stint in power back in the late 1990s, salons were forced to shut down then as well. But when the Taliban took over Afghanistan again in 2021, they had promised to do things differently. They promised the world that this was a new, relatively moderate Taliban, a Taliban 2.0, if you will. That was all rubbish, of course, but the world bought it. And it's the Afghans, especially the women, who are paying the price. Are the Taliban doing this because they feel the global scrutiny shifting away? Have they realized that no one is going to lift a finger to stop them? They've been committing crimes against women ever since they took control in 2021. The Taliban have stopped women from getting an education beyond the 6th grade. They have imposed strict dress codes and chaperone laws. And they keep restricting women's participation in the workforce. The UN has called this systematic repression gender apartheid.
Grave, systematic and institutionalized discrimination against women and girls as is at the heart of Taliban ideology and rule, which also gives rise to concerns that they may be responsible for gender apartheid, a serious human rights violation which, although not yet explicitly an international crime, requires further study. We also draw to the Council's attention our deep concern that these serious deprivations of women and girls' fundamental human rights and the harsh enforcement by the de facto authorities of their restrictive measures may constitute the crime against humanity of gender persecution.
The UN wants to study the Taliban's gender apartheid and see if it can be called an international crime. It already calls the Taliban's rule a crime against humanity. And as countries continue to turn a blind eye, things will only get worse for Afghan women. After this latest salon ban, women can now only work as doctors and nurses. And who knows how long that will last. Unless the world starts putting some real pressure on the warlords in Kabul, they will continue to assault the dignity of the women in Afghanistan.